To pursue a career as a professional artist is to expect a lot from your job. More, it seems, than most people expect from their own. Professional artists and those who aspire to the same status expect the work to be both financially sustainable and creatively fulfilling. Some people seem satisfied simply to find a day job they don't hate and compensate for any lack of creativity with hobbies. And others view their vocation as a tolerable compromise that buys time for the art they place at the center of their lives. Regardless of which takes priority, it often seems that we have to choose art or a steady paycheck. But why would it have to be one or the other? Why couldn't our work be both financially sustainable and creatively fulfilling? Are we asking too much? Is it even realistic to imagine? This is You're a Better Artist Than You Think, Lesson 1.1. I'm your instructor, Chris Oatley. Subscribe via email at howtobecomeaprofessionalartist.com and get each new lesson delivered to your inbox as soon as they become available. In this first lesson of a course titled You're a Better Artist Than You Think, we'll introduce a crucial question that could save your art career, even if you don't have one yet, and rethink a common belief that often prevents artists from becoming professionals. But as with every lesson throughout the course, we'll begin by looking to history for answers. History always has answers. Today we'll hear the origin story of Mary Blair, a mid-century Disney artist whose, quote, renown in the company, writes historian Nathalia Holt, quote, was second only to Walt's. In her life and work, which is on display throughout this video recording, we'll find a more vivid picture of what it means to make a living from one's creative passion, what often blocks many of us from a similar experience, and how this fundamental shift in the way we think about the art versus money conundrum can affect the quality of our work, whether we find it fulfilling, our sense of self, of belonging, of motivation, and inspiration. Lesson Overview. Part 1 ends on a cliffhanger. We'll track the development of Mary's career to what was probably the most significant professional decision she ever made. A decision she regretted, a decision about which she quickly changed her mind. In Part 2, we'll apply the lesson found in Mary's career to our own and introduce the crucial question I mentioned earlier. In Part 3, I'll share a story from my own life when I realized that I was confidently pursuing the wrong career, what it cost me, how I solved the problem, and what I learned in the process. In future lessons, we'll cover topics from mentorship to motivation, learning from visual artists, but also from musical and literary figures, as artistic professionals in every field have wisdom and inspiration for each other. And by the end of the course, you'll have a clearer, more actionable plan to become a professional artist, as well as a deeper appreciation for the artists who came before us. Perfect compliments. As a kid, I thought the Small World ride was cute, but I hadn't yet grown up enough to appreciate the scope and sophistication of its design. Instead, I entertained my parents by zombie walking around the Magic Kingdom with a vacant pod person expression, endlessly repeating the infectious anthem in crackling falsetto. It's so small. I love the song now, by the way. Yes, unironically. I got serious about animation history in graduate school, but even then Mary Blair was one brilliant artist among many. It wasn't until a sunny afternoon in 2016 that I learned to appreciate her unique genius, thanks to my friend and former colleague, Claire Keane. Claire and I were collaborating on a color theory lesson to co-present in Rome a few months later. I brought Tyrus Wong backgrounds, Claire brought Mary Blair concept art. She opened one of Mary's paintings in Photoshop, selected 2 swatches of color, one lime green and one violet, dragged them both onto a middle gray background and told me to check this out. Then Claire ran the invert command, which flipped the RGB values to produce a mathematically perfect complement of each color. It's extremely difficult to mix complementary colors with analog paint, but considering Mary's reputation, I expected the result would be very close. But the colors didn't appear to change at all. The swatches just seemed to switch places. The lime green became the violet, the exact same violet from before, and vice versa. I literally couldn't believe my eyes. Over 60 years ago, in gouache or acrylic, by hand, and without the aid of digital tools, Mary Blair mixed and applied near-perfect complementary colors in a concept painting for Peter Pan. Mark Davis, one of the first Disney Imagineers, Mary's close friend and frequent collaborator in the creation of Tinkerbell, Maleficent, It's a Small World, and many other projects, said she was the most amazing colorist of all time. But Mary's color sense was only one of her many talents. She was an accomplished watercolorist, children's book illustrator, graphic designer, muralist, and fashionista who designed and fabricated her own eccentric wardrobe. Within the field of animation, Mary inspired Walt Disney in ways that no other artist did. She expanded the visual language and color palette of Disney productions faster and more widely than any other studio artist before or since. She was a story artist, color stylist, art director, character designer, early influence for Ivan Earle and Maurice Noble, a harbinger of modernism, a bicoastal pioneer of remote work, and one of the first women in studio leadership. From the heartbreaking Baby Mine sequence in Dumbo to the sensitive psychedelia of The Three Caballeros, to the elegant whimsy of Cinderella, or finally, to It's a Small World, her magnum opus. She was, as author Didier Getz wrote, quote, the most influential Disney concept artist of the 1950s. Considering her pervasive influence at Disney today, the design of Tangled, Frozen, and the Monsters, Inc. franchises are just a few examples. One could make a strong argument for Mary Blair as the most influential Disney concept artist ever. But if not for one decisive moment in her early days at Disney, almost all of it might never have happened. Her first ambition. Mary Blair, born Mary Brown Robinson, was always single-minded about her art. Like Dorothy Gale in many ways, she was a Dust Bowl child destined for displacement and determined to find a more vivid life than the one she inherited. John Kingmaker referred to Mary's father as, quote, amiably alcoholic and peripatetic, and recounted a story in which little Mary demanded money from the family's meager budget to buy art supplies, her justification being that, quote, Dad will just drink it up anyway. Her family moved first from Oklahoma to Texas, then to Northern California, where she eventually enrolled at San Jose State College. During the onset of the Great Depression and the beginning of the actual Dust Bowl phenomenon in her homeland, Mary accepted one of only 2 scholarships to what we now know as Cal Arts, then the Chouinard Institute, in Los Angeles. There she met, influenced, and apparently became romantically involved with the winner of the other scholarship, someone who would become an animation legend in his own right. Maurice Noble, by way of author Todd Polson, said, Mary and I were the poor church mice of the school. After painting class, children who had a lot of money would often throw away leftover tubes of paint. Then Mary and I would pick the stuff out of the trash bin. She also used to take paper towels out of the washroom and paint on them. Pruitt Carter, a successful journeyman illustrator, became Mary's mentor, even beyond graduation, and helped her to form what she referred to as her, quote, first ambition, commercial illustration. A versatile mimic, a marquee artist. Lee Blair, they married in 1934, would play both helpful and harmful roles in Mary's life. While Mary had finally clarified her professional intent, Lee, who seems to have been more of a fine art purist, pursued opportunities for each of them to develop and showcase what Mary called their, quote, easel paintings. Depression-era economics, however, demanded that they both apply for jobs in the geographically convenient animation industry. Neither artist had any interest in the field, and yet Mary still considered it some kind of calling. At first, Mary was hired for more factory-like work, but she replaced Lee as a color designer for Harman-Ising when he moved to Disney. Mary followed 3 years later. Of Mary's first year at Disney, Nathalia Holt writes that, quote, "There was pleasure in the work, but not nearly enough freedom. While her husband enjoyed artistic liberty at the studio, Mary felt stifled in her more modest role." After a few months in the color model department, Mary moved to Story. Drawing from a place of deep emotional pain, she inspired the heartbreaking baby mind sequence for Dumbo. But despite the significance of that accomplishment, opportunities to work on other interesting projects, and the beginning of a precious friendship with animator Retta Scott, Mary still felt like she didn't belong. Why? Because she hadn't found her own answer to the crucial question. Mary was a versatile mimic before she became a marquee artist. Throughout her entire career, she drew influence from everywhere, everything, and everyone. However, she hadn't yet synthesized or shaped her many influences into the industry-altering visual thesis we see in Caballeros, Cinderella, Small World, etc. As John Canemaker said of her early work at Disney, quote, "Her drawings look like the work of 3 different artists." Frank Thomas, Mary's contemporary, not to mention one of the best character animators in the history of animation, said, quote, "She could draw like anybody else and paint like anybody else, but she wasn't expressing herself." Though these comments might sound like criticism, I don't think they are. It's just that in hindsight, everyone knows that Mary was destined to change again, from versatile mimic to marquee artist. Finding your style. Before we go any further, it's important to establish that since the medium of animation requires hundreds of artists to collaborate in a unified visual idiom, convincing mimics are in high demand. There are jobs for marquee artists too, but there's a common misconception that every artist must, quote, "find their style" before they can enjoy professional success. Artists only need to develop a unique style if the professional specialization to which they aspire requires them to do so. A children's book illustrator might define a unique style with the hope of being considered marketable, but there are also children's book series that require multiple illustrators to adapt to the same, established style so the entire series has a unified look. Finding your style is irrelevant when the job requires you to be a convincing mimic. Quitting Disney. I do not believe that Mary Blair's early work is less impressive than the marquee style for which she is now known. I see it as remarkable versatility and further evidence of her genius. I also think it's possible that Mary felt out of place and ultimately disinterested at Disney because despite her versatility and ability to disappear into the Gestalt, her destiny, and therefore ultimate creative fulfillment, was to design it. On June 13, 1941, just 14 months after she was hired, Mary Blair resigned from her job at the Disney studio. She felt her Disney work was, quote, "interesting, but not enough to, quote, sidetrack her, quote, first ambition to be a commercial illustrator like Pruitt Carter." But just 2 months later, she returned, and with uncanny rapidity transformed into her final form, the queen of mid-century animation. What changed her mind? What changed her work? Why and how? No, it wasn't pixie dust. It was the crucial question. Next, in part 2. The crucial question is important, but it offers no magical effects. It's a challenging, complex question that, I hope, will help you make more confident decisions as you plan and navigate your art career. We'll also get the rest of Mary Blair's origin story. But before we can even begin to explore it, we have some journaling to do. Lesson 1.1 Homework. Throughout the course, we'll keep a journal. At the end of each lesson, I'll offer a set of journaling prompts that I think will help you process the experience and clarify a plan for the next season of your art career. Here's your first journal prompt. Step 1. Draw 2 columns. Label the left column Creative Fulfillment. Label the right column Financially Sustainable. Keep the chart blank for now. Step 2. Copy the same 2-column chart onto another page so you have 2 identical charts. Label the first chart, Hell Yes, and the second chart, Hell No. Step 3. Get quiet. Get still. Breathe. There's no rush. We're going to take our time with this. Step 4. As words, feelings, and ideas begin to come to mind, begin to fill in your Hell Yes chart. List the aspects you would consider creatively fulfilling in an artistic career, and put them into the corresponding column. Of course, this is the Hell Yes list. We'll do the Hell No list next. These are the professional aspects that make you want to say, hell yeah, that kind of career is definitely for me. If you feel like you don't know enough about all the opportunities for professional artists, that's not a problem. Things will become more specific over time. Right now, just focus on qualities. What kinds of qualities do you feel are essential for your art career? For example, do you find the most fulfillment in working alone or in collaboration? If close collaboration and frequent social interaction doesn't sound appealing, then animation probably isn't for you. If, on the other hand, you like to work the vampire shift and you're super into cloaks and swords, maybe it's time to explore the specifics of sci-fi fantasy illustration. Make sense? And with the understanding that no career will ever love you back, consider which qualities you feel are reasonable to expect from it. Step 5. Now do the same thing with the financially sustainable column. Again, these are the positives. However, I use the word sustainable because the goal here is not to become rich and famous. Some artists do become rich and famous, I guess, but most of us are not motivated by that. I think most professional artists just want balance, simplicity, and sustainability. So take enough time to clearly define what you personally consider sustainable. Not rich and famous, but also not broke AF. Sustainable. Step 6. Take a break. A few hours, a day, whatever you need. Then do the Hell No chart. What aspects would be deal breakers? There are some easy answers, of course. For example, toxic work culture is probably a hell no for all of us. But there are certain aspects that can be more challenging to categorize. For example, some artists want to work at Disney, but they haven't considered the consequences of moving to Southern California. We're not trying to be hopelessly negative here. We're beginning to find focus by eliminating options. We often need hell no to find hell yes. Nobody expects their career to be perfect, but we all want to find the best fit possible. Step 7. Take another break. Come back in a day or two and consider what your completed charts reveal about what to hope for and expect in your career as a professional artist. Any questions? Please email them to support@chrisoatley.com. If we receive questions to which our responses apply more generally, we'll create bonus lessons and share them along with the main course content. Subscribe via email and get each new lesson delivered to your inbox as soon as they become available. It's 100% free, and we will always respect your privacy. The Mary Blair art and citations in this lesson came from the following resources. We recommend for further reading, The Queens of Animation by Nathalia Holt. They Drew as They Pleased, Volume 4, The Hidden Art of Disney's Mid-Century Era by Didier Getz. The Art and Flair of Mary Blair by John Canemaker. Ink and Paint, The Women of Walt Disney's Animation by Mindy Johnson. Tinkerbell, An Evolution, also by Mindy Johnson. Mark Davis, in his own words, Imagineering the Disney Theme Parks by Pete Docter and Christopher Merritt. The Noble Approach, Maurice Noble and the Zen of Animation Design by Todd Polson.